These are the kinds of history facts that sound made up until you trace the context. From elections and manuscripts to war production and public memory, every episode starts with a strange detail and ends with the rule behind it. In one election, the same man appeared on both sides of the ballot. Carlos Melendez was listed for president and vice president at once. The setting was the 1903 Salvadoran presidential election. Politics there was shaped by elite power, so competition could be narrow and tightly managed. That is the strange part. The ballot could place Melendez in two top offices because the election system allowed elite-backed candidacies to overlap. The immediate result was not confusion in the street, but a clearer view of how controlled the contest was. One name could sit in more than one office slot, so the odd ballot was less a mistake than a window into the system. A single paper could carry a single name across two offices, and leave the ballot box looking ordinary. A book of exactly 40 sayings looks strangely specific, yet scholars kept making them, one slim manuscript after another. This belongs to the 40 hadith tradition. It grew inside religious scholarship, where a hadith is a reported saying. One hadith promised special treatment on Judgment Day for anyone who preserved 40 sayings. That promise gave compilers a clear reason to gather them. So the odd number became a working pattern. Scholars selected sayings, copied them by hand, and shaped them into compact collections. The result is a small book built around a spiritual reward. On a wooden shelf, the 40 sayings sit together as one careful volume. The Alide were known for scholarship, yet none of their books survive. Sources remember them as a respected scholarly family, venerated for knowledge and legacy. Their name comes through historical memory, not surviving pages. The key detail is written transmission. Later writers carried their reputation forward, even after the original texts disappeared from view. So their fame rests on memory and citation, not on books you can open today. The loss leaves a gap where their own words should be. What survives is a name, a reputation, and the traces left by readers. On the shelf, the missing volumes matter most. Henry Williamson put The Patriot's Progress aside for a whole year. A praised war novel had stopped his pen. Williamson was working on The Patriot's Progress, a war novel of his own. Then praise for All Quiet on the Western Front reached him. He reacted with disgust, and the reaction had a real effect. He halted his work for a year, refusing to continue while that praise stood beside him. The pause left the novel unfinished on the table. One book's reputation had reached across the room and changed another writer's schedule. So the strange gap in The Patriot's Progress began with literary rivalry, not silence. On the desk, the manuscript waited beside the rival war novel. The wartime job was keeping the optic system running, and James Stanley Rogers was the secretary on that panel. In Australia during the Second World War, a panel watched over optical munitions production. That meant paperwork, schedules, and coordination had to stay tight. Rogers was not the inventor or the factory boss. He was the secretary, which meant records, messages, and production control moved through his desk. That administrative role helped keep optical munitions production organized under wartime pressure. One missed form or delayed note could slow the line. So James Stanley Rogers sits in the record as the person handling the panel's flow, not the machinery itself. On the desk, the forms sat beside the lenses. A Civil War gunboat class was said to feel unusually comfortable. That sounds wrong until you see the Mohango class on the river. The United States Navy ordered 7 sidewheel, double-ended gunboats for the Union Navy. They were meant for rivers and shallow water, where deep ships could not follow. Their double-ended shape helped them move either way without turning. In cramped river channels, that meant less hard maneuvering and a steadier shipboard routine. Only one ship of the class was completed in time to join the war. The others arrived too late, and the Navy's plans shifted as the conflict moved on. Even so, the class kept that odd reputation. A warship built for shallow water fighting could still carry broad cabins, side wheels, and room enough for a calmer watch. She answered sexism with one line about broken pianos. A German pianist said she broke hers as well as any man. Alide Topp was a German pianist in the New German School. She was known for technical virtuosity, the kind that fills a hall with force. When strength became the insult, Topp flipped it. She said she broke her pianos as well as any man, making force part of her proof. The remark shifted the argument from gender to performance. It framed power as something heard in the concert, not guessed from the player. That wit matched a real career. Topp had earned recognition in Germany, served as a court pianist, and later toured the United States with her piano. A dead marriage ban still went to the ballot in Mississippi in 1987. Voters were asked to repeal it anyway. The ban covered interracial marriage, but Loving versus Virginia had already made such bans unconstitutional 20 years earlier. The state constitution still carried the clause. House Concurrent Resolution No. 13 put Amendment 3 on the 1987 ballot. The vote was symbolic, but the count was exact: 51.76% approved. Even so, 44 of Mississippi's 82 counties voted against repeal. The result was narrow enough to show real resistance, not just a formality. So the ballot mattered because the Constitution still held the old language, and voters had to remove it themselves. The final image is a ballot beside a crossed-out clause. If one small detail can change how a story makes sense, there are plenty more waiting here. Subscribe for more history that textbooks usually skip, and tell us which facts surprised you most.